In this village, children were perishing because the king allocated all the water to sustain his daughter. However, if she ever made contact with the ground, she would vanish forever. This is the tale of the girl composed of rain. The sun blazed down on the village of Tola like a colossal furious eye. It was so scorching that the soil hardened and cracked into forms resembling shattered plates. In Tola, there existed a rule that everyone was aware of. It was the most crucial rule in the entire kingdom, and no one dared to violate it. Princess Adora was never permitted to touch the ground. If she ventured outside, the royal guards unfurled thick, heavy carpets woven from vibrant red and gold threads. If the carpets were insufficient, four enormous men would carry her in a wooden chair that floated high above the dusty roads. Even within the grand stone palace, her bare feet never made contact with the floor. She donned thick wooden shoes, and servants placed soft animal skins wherever she wished to step. The villagers observed her as she passed, whispering behind their hands. Why was she treated like a delicate bird? Why did the king appear so frightened every time she approached the edge of her carpet? The king, a large man named Django, had issued a stern warning to everyone in the realm. If anyone allowed the princess to touch the bare earth, that individual would be cast into the deep, dark dungeon for eternity. No one understood the true reason behind the peculiar rule. Some claimed she was cursed by an evil witch. Others suggested her feet were made of pure gold, and that the dirt would tarnish them. Yet, the reality was far more horrifying than anyone could fathom. And the secret was gradually eroding the village of Tola. A young boy named Kobe resided at the very outskirts of Tola. Kobe was merely 8 years old, yet he toiled harder than an adult. He possessed large, bright eyes and hands that were callous from laboring in the parched soil. Kobe lived with his younger sister, Nala. Nala was petite and endearing, yet she was perpetually hungry. Her parents had succumbed to a devastating illness that ravaged the village, leaving Kobe to care for his sister alone. Each day, Kobe and Nala positioned themselves by the roadside to observe the royal procession. They beheld the lovely Princess Adora perched high in her wooden chair. She donned gowns crafted from shimmering blue silk, and her hair was intricately braided with glimmering beads. However, Kobe perceived something that escaped the notice of the other villagers. When Adora gazed down at the crowd, she did not exhibit a smile. Her eyes appeared sorrowful, akin to a bird ensnared in a splendid golden cage. Nala would tug at Kobe's shirt and inquire, "Why can't the princess frolic and play in the dirt with us?" Kobe merely shook his head, lacking a response. He was aware that while the princess floated above them on plush cushions, his little sister's stomach rumbled with hunger, and their throats ached with a dreadful thirst. The disparity between the palace and the village was increasingly unsettling. The village of Tola was gradually perishing. For several months, not a single drop of rain had graced the earth. The once mighty river that flowed through the heart of the village had transformed into a deep trench of parched white sand. The verdant plants had withered to brown and disintegrated into dust. The cows and goats became emaciated, lamenting throughout the night due to their lack of water. The mothers in the village endeavored to extract drops of tainted water from mud puddles for their infants, but soon even those puddles evaporated. The air was laden with dust, rendering breathing a challenge. The villagers were in despair. They required water to endure. Yet, atop the elevated hill, King Django's palace stood resplendent and magnificent. The king possessed a concealed deep well within the palace confines that never ran dry, yet he secured the heavy iron gates, hoarding all the water for himself, his guards and his daughter. The villagers could not comprehend how could a king observe his people endure such suffering? Why was he more concerned with keeping dust off his daughter's feet than ensuring the survival of his subjects? Kobe watched the arid wind swirl the dust around his modest hut. Music, he held his little sister close, feeling her warm, dry forehead. He understood that he needed to take action or his sister would not withstand the brutal heat. Kobe resolved to find a way into the palace. He had heard that the head cook, an elderly woman named Binta, required assistance in cleaning the large cooking pots. Kobe ascended the steep music stone path leading to the grand palace gates. He informed the towering guards that he was strong and capable of hard work. The guards chuckled at the small boy, but old Binta emerged and recognized the determination in Kobe's eyes. She permitted him entry. Kobe's new role involved scrubbing the enormous black cooking pots and washing the special soft animal skins that Princess Adora walked upon. He had to cleanse them in a small tub of water and lay them out in the sun to dry perfectly. Music. The palace was vast and filled with unusual scents like roasted meat and fragrant flowers. For Kobe, it felt like an entirely different realm. He received a small bowl of leftover rice each day, which he discreetly concealed in his pocket to bring home to his sister. Working in the palace allowed him to finally witness the lifestyle of the king and the princess. He observed the guards vigilantly monitoring the ground, sweeping away every speck of dirt or sharp stone from the hallways. The atmosphere in the palace was thick with fear. Everyone music was apprehensive about making a mistake. One afternoon, while Kobe was carrying a stack of soft, clean animal skins across the royal courtyard, he noticed that the courtyard was paved with smooth white stones, yet there were patches of bare earth where flowers had once flourished. Princess Adora sat on a large wooden bench, surrounded by guards and her attendants. Music. She was gazing at a small, colorful bird in a cage. Kobe paused for a moment to observe her up close. She appeared even more stunning, yet her sorrow was even more distinctly evident. She gazed at the barren ground with profound yearning, as if she wished to leap down and feel the soil beneath her feet. At that moment, one of the elderly servants, a man whose hands trembled with age, was unrolling a new carpet for her to step upon. His foot slipped on a loose stone, causing the heavy carpet to fall from his grasp and roll away, exposing a large patch of bare brown earth right in front of the princess. The courtyard fell into complete silence. Nobody inhaled. Princess Adora rose, her eyes wide with surprise. For a brief moment, she moved her foot toward the exposed dirt. The tension in the air was palpable. It felt as though it could be sliced with a knife. Just before Adora's foot could make contact with the dirt, King Django stormed into the courtyard. His face was flushed with unrestrained fury. "Stop!" he bellowed, his voice resonating like thunder against the stone walls. He rushed forward and seized his daughter by the arm, yanking her back with such force that she nearly stumbled. The king then turned to the elderly servant who had let the carpet fall. The king's eyes were frantic and filled with a deep-seated dread. He commanded his guards to immediately take the old man away to the dark dungeons. The old man wept and pleaded for mercy, but the king remained unyielding. "If she touches the earth, we are all doomed," the king shouted at the other servants. Kobe observed from behind a large stone pillar, his heart racing in his chest. Why was the king so filled with fear? It was merely dirt. Every child in Tola played in the dirt. Yet the king reacted as if the old servant had nearly dropped the princess into a pit of venomous snakes. After the guards had dragged the weeping man away, the king lifted Adora into his arms and carried her back to her high tower, securing the doors behind them. Kobe realized then that this was not simply an unusual royal decree. This was a matter of life and death. The following morning, Kobe was assigned the task of cleaning the tall windows outside the princess's chamber. He positioned himself on a high wooden ladder, diligently wiping the glass with a damp cloth. Suddenly, the window swung open and Princess Adora peered out. She noticed Kobe but refrained from summoning the guards. Instead, she leaned in closer. "You are from the village below, aren't you?" she inquired. Her voice was gentle, reminiscent of a soft breeze. Kobe nodded slowly, hesitant to utter a word. "Tell me," she whispered, gazing down at the distant ground, "what does the earth feel like? Is it warm? Is it soft?" Kobe was taken aback. An 8-year-old girl who had never experienced the ground. "It is hard and dry at the moment, princess," Kobe replied softly, "because there has been no rain. However, when it is wet, it squishes between your toes and has a vibrant scent." Adora closed her eyes and inhaled deeply as she attempted to visualize it. "My father claims the earth is perilous. He says it is filled with sharp teeth that will bite my feet." Kobe frowned at this statement. It was untrue. The earth was merely earth. Why would the king deceive his own daughter? "The earth does not bite, princess," Kobe asserted courageously, "but it is very thirsty at present. My people are thirsty as well." Adora gazed at Kobe with wide, anxious eyes. She was unaware that her people were in distress. Later that day, A group of the oldest and wisest men from the village approached the heavy palace gates. They carried empty wooden bowls and knelt in the dust. They implored the guards' music to allow them to speak with the king. Eventually, the king emerged onto the balcony, looking down at them with a frigid music gaze. "Great king," the eldest man pleaded, his voice trembling. "Our crops have perished. Our livestock is gone. The children are too weak to cry. Please open the palace well. Share your water, or Tola will turn into a graveyard." King Django clutched the stone railing of the balcony until his knuckles turned pale. "This water in this palace is reserved solely for the royal family," he proclaimed loudly. "If I provide it to you, it will deplete. Return to your homes and beseech the heavens for rain." The elderly men wept, raising their empty bowls, yet the king music turned away and entered the palace. Kobe observed this from the kitchen door, feeling a surge of hot anger in his chest. The king was a cruel and selfish individual. The village was perishing, and the king remained indifferent. Kobe realized he could no longer merely wash animal skins. He needed to uncover the truth regarding the water, the king, and the peculiar decree concerning the princess. Music. That night, while everyone in the palace was asleep, Kobe resolved to investigate. He stealthily navigated the dark, silent corridors, clutching a small flickering candle. He aimed to discover a route to the royal well to procure some water for Nala. He traversed a narrow, dusty passage that appeared to have been unused for years. At the corridor's end, he encountered a heavy wooden door that was ajar. Kobe pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit and reeked of old paper and dried leaves. He raised his candle and gasped. The walls were adorned with enormous, vibrant paintings. Although they were aged and fading, Kobe could distinctly perceive the narrative they depicted. The first painting illustrated a much younger King Django standing in a parched field, cradling a tiny, lifeless infant in his arms. The king was weeping. The second painting depicted the king entering a dark, ominous music forest and encountering a colossal shadow in the sky resembling a storm cloud. The final painting portrayed the storm cloud placing a radiant blue light into the infant's chest. Beneath the painting, inscribed in ancient letters, were the words, "The music sky grants life, but the earth will invariably reclaim it." Kobe gazed at the wall, his thoughts racing. The infant in the painting was music princess Adora. "You ought not to be here, young boy." Kobe startled and dropped his candle. Old Binta, the chief cook, stood in the doorway holding a lantern. Her expression was one of sadness and profound fatigue. Kobe feared she would summon the guards to imprison him in the dungeon, but instead she merely sighed and entered the room. She gazed at the ancient paintings adorning the walls. She remarked, "Music. I see you have uncovered the king's greatest secret." Her voice was gentle. Kobe stared at her, trembling all over. "Is that the princess?" he inquired. Binta nodded slowly. She settled into an old wooden chair and began to reveal the truth to Kobe. 10 years ago, Princess Adora was born, but she did not take a breath. She was lost before she could even live. King Django was so heartbroken that he lost his sanity. He took the infant to the evil forest and called upon the ancient spirits of the sky, the ones who govern the rain and the clouds. The king implored them to restore his daughter to life. The sky spirits consented, but bargains with spirits invariably come with a dreadful music cost. The magic in this realm requires balance, and the king had tampered with the laws of life and death. Old Binta leaned closer to Kobe, her eyes wide in the dim light. The sky spirits placed a music fragment of the rain clouds within the baby to create her heartbeat. Binta whispered. "Adora is not entirely human, Kobe. She is composed of water, magic, and sky. She is a living rain spirit encased in human skin." Kobe was both astonished and frightened. "But why can't she touch the ground?" he asked. Binta's expression darkened significantly. "Because the earth is envious," she clarified. "The earth is aware that she does not belong here. The magic that sustains her life is of the sky. If her bare skin ever makes contact with the natural soil, the thirsty earth will immediately recognize the magic. It will absorb her like a drop of water in the desert. The earth will extract the rain spirit from her body to nourish the soil, and she will vanish forever." Kobe finally comprehended. The king was unafraid of death tarnishing her feet. He was shielding her from being engulfed by the earth. However, Binta was not done. The curse runs deeper, boy. The sky spirits' music are furious that the king confines their rain within her body. Therefore, they refuse to allow rain to fall on Tola until their magic is restored to the ground. The king's self-centered love is the cause of our village's demise. Music from thirst. The following day, Kobe observed that Princess Adora was absent from the courtyard. The palace was in turmoil. Kobe overheard the guards murmuring. The dreadful dry heat was finally taking its toll on the princess. As she was composed of rain magic, her body required moisture to survive. With the atmosphere being so utterly arid and hot, her magic was diminishing. Servants reported that her skin was becoming translucent, almost resembling a glass of water, and she was too feeble to rise. She lay in her expansive bed, mourning deeply, appearing paler by the moment. The king was pacing the corridors like a caged lion, shouting at his healers to remedy her condition. Yet the healers were powerless. They understood she was not afflicted by a typical illness. She was desiccating. Just as the crops in the fields and the river in the village, Princess Adora was gradually turning to dust. King Django recognized he had to restore moisture to the air in her chamber, regardless of the cost. He issued a new dreadful command to his soldiers. A command that would drive the suffering village to its utmost limit. The hefty King Django's armed guards descended the hill into the village of Tola. They bore large metal buckets and sharp spears. The king had commanded them to seize every last drop of water remaining in the entire village. They forcefully opened the doors of small huts in search of concealed clay pots. They confiscated the murky puddle water, the water reserved for the ill, and even the small cups of water mothers had hidden for their ailing infants. The villagers wept and pleaded. Music, but the guards repelled them with their spears. They transported all the water back to the palace. There in the courtyards they constructed enormous fires beneath massive iron tops. Music, they heated all the pilfered water to generate vast clouds of steam. The guards employed large fans to direct the steam into the princess's lofty tower window, saturating her room with moisture to keep her skin hydrated and her magic vibrant. The king was robbing his people of their final breath of life merely to grant his daughter a few additional days. The sky remained dreadfully empty and blue. Kobe observed the steam ascending into the atmosphere, aware that it was composed of the tears and stolen vitality of his friends and family. When Kobe eventually returned home that evening, the village was utterly silent. It was not a tranquil silence. It was the silence of defeat. He hurried into his modest hut to check on Nala. His heart froze. Nala was lying on her frail mat on the floor, and she was unresponsive. Her lips were cracked and music bleeding, and her skin was burning with fever. Kobe gently shook her. Nala. Music, wake up. I brought you some rice. But Nala could not open her eyes. She emitted a faint, weak sound, reminiscent of a baby bird. Kobe scanned the empty hut. The small cup of water he had reserved for her was gone, taken by the king's guards. A hot tear trickled down Kobe's cheek and fell onto the dry, dusty floor. He realized that if he did not act, Nala would not survive the night. He reflected on the old paintings. He thought of the clear, glassy skin of the princess. He considered the stolen water boiling in the palace. Kobe wiped his eyes and rose to his feet. His hands clenched into tight fists. He was merely a small boy, but he understood what he needed to do. The king had made a selfish decision. Music, but now Kobe was determined to make a courageous one. Kobe believed that Princess Adora possessed a good heart. She had spoken kindly to him. She had gazed at the ground with awe, not fear. Kobe was convinced that if she truly comprehended that her life was causing little girls like Nala would not wish to remain confined in that tower. The king had deceived her throughout her entire life, keeping her completely unaware of the suffering that lay beyond her window. Kobe resolved to sneak into her room and reveal the truth to her. He intended to inform her about the malevolent forest, the sky spirits, and the dreadful curse. This was an exceedingly perilous plan. Should the guards apprehend him, King Django would undoubtedly imprison him in the dungeon, or impose an even harsher fate. However, as Kobe gazed at his ailing sister, he recognized that he had no alternative. He waited until the moon was high in the sky and the village was enveloped in darkness. Quietly, he slipped out of his hut and stealthily ascended the steep hill towards the imposing stone walls of the royal palace. He was small and swift, moving like a shadow in the night. Gaining entry into the palace after dark proved to be significantly more challenging. Guards were stationed everywhere, wielding bright torches that cast long, ominous shadows. Kobe understood that he could not utilize the main entrance. Instead, he approached the rear of the palace where the tall stone wall met the side of the princess's lofty tower. Thick, green ivy vines climbed the tower's side, reaching all the way to her balcony. Taking a deep breath, Kobe grasped the sturdiest vine and commenced his ascent. The rough stone scraped against his knees, and his arms throbbed with each pull. The ground receded further and further away. If he were to fall now, survival would be unlikely. He climbed higher and higher, passing the windows of the slumbering servants. At last he reached the smooth stone ledge of the princess's balcony. He hoisted himself up and rolled over the edge, lying flat on his back to regain his breath. The glass doors to her room were slightly ajar, allowing steam to escape. Kobe cautiously advanced and peered inside. The room was thick with warm white steam, resembling the inside of a cloud. In the center of the room, Princess Adora reclined on her large bed. Appearing incredibly frail, her skin radiated a soft, enchanting blue light, and her hands appeared almost entirely transparent, resembling melting ice. Kobe entered through the doors. "Princess," he murmured. Adora gasped and drew her blankets closer. "You, the boy from the courtyard. How did you manage to come up here? If my father discovers you, he will harm you." Kobe advanced, his expression grave. "I am not concerned about your father at this moment," Kobe stated resolutely. "I am focused on my sister. She is on the brink of death. Everyone in the village is perishing, and it is due to you." Adora appeared stunned and wounded. "Due to me? I have done nothing wrong. I am merely unwell." Kobe shook his head. "You are not unwell, Adora. You music are cursed." Taking a deep breath, Kobe recounted the entire tale. He spoke of the deceased infant, the sky spirits, the magical rain within her chest, and how her father had taken all the village's water to create steam for her. Adora absorbed Kobe's narrative in complete, music silence. As he described the dying creatures, the appropriated water, and little Nala, large, glistening tears began to stream down her face. However, her tears were unlike ordinary human tears. They were perfectly clear droplets of pure, fresh water that music carried the scent of a spring morning. When they landed on her silk blankets, they fizzled with magic. "My entire existence is a deception," Adora whispered, gazing at her luminous, watery hands. "My father has kept me alive, but he is sacrificing everyone else to achieve it. I am robbing the rain." Kobe nodded with sadness. "The sky spirits will not permit rain until the magic within you is returned to the earth." Adora gazed out the open balcony doors. Below, the village of Tola lay dark, parched, and silent. She contemplated all the children suffering in the heat. She looked at Kobe, a courageous young boy risking his life for his sister. Adora's expression transformed. The sorrow vanished, replaced by a profound music, strength, and tranquility. "I have always wondered why I felt a tugging in my chest when I gazed at the soil. It was the earth beckoning me home. It is music time for me to depart." Suddenly, the robust wooden doors to the bedroom swung open. King Django appeared, clad in his night robes and wielding a sharp sword. He had overheard voices. Upon seeing Kobe near her daughter, his eyes widened with madness. "Get away from her!" the king bellowed, raising his sword. "Guards! Guards!" Kobe stood frozen in fear, but Princess Adora rose to her feet. She was not wearing her heavy wooden shoes. Her bare, radiant feet rested upon the soft animal skins. "Stop, father!" Adora commanded. Her voice had lost its softness, resonating like a roaring river. The king halted, staring at her in disbelief. "Adora, what are you doing? Sit down. You are weak." The king dropped his sword and rushed toward her, but Adora retreated, moving closer to the open balcony doors. "You made a grave mistake, father," she said, filled with sorrow. "You cheated death, and our people are the ones who suffer. I love you for your desire to save me, but I cannot allow innocent children to perish so that I may live in a cage. She turned her back on the king and stepped out onto the cold stone of the balcony. No! The king screamed, lunging forward, but he was too late. Princess Adora glanced back at Kobe and offered her a beautiful, grateful smile. Then, music, she stepped off the edge of the stone balcony. She did not fall far. As soon as her bare feet touched the dry, dusty earth of the royal garden below, a massive, blinding flash of blue light erupted into the night sky. The ground trembled violently. Kobe shielded her eyes. A loud, booming sound echoed, reminiscent of a mountain splitting apart. When Kobe opened her eyes, Adora had vanished. In her place, a colossal pillar of pure, sparkling music water surged from the ground, reaching high into the clouds. Music instantly, the empty sky was filled with thick, heavy dark rain clouds. Thunder rumbled loudly, and then the rain music began to pour. It was not a mere drizzle. It was a heavy, magnificent, soaking rain. In the village below, individuals emerged from their huts, both laughing and weeping as the water cascaded over them. Nala stirred awake, savoring the sweet droplets that fell upon her face. The once parched river became rejuvenated, and the land absorbed the moisture eagerly. Princess Adora had restored magic to the earth, Clear's throat, sacrificing herself for the sake of her people. Kobe stood on the balcony, allowing the rain to envelop him, fully aware that he would forever remember the courageous girl who ultimately touched the ground. Certain aspects of life are not meant to be governed. When we attempt to grasp too firmly, we risk causing pain to those we cherish. What would you have chosen? To live or to save the village? If this narrative resonated with you, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Welcome to African Folktales by Music Ray, where each story imparts a valuable lesson.